أما بعد, brothers and sisters, committed Muslims, لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة. In fact, in their narratives there is an eye-opener. We will continue, even in the hard or harsh weather that we are in, we will continue in these few minutes that we have to bring out, in light of the Quran and the Prophet, some of the events that still have not been seriously considered in light of the Quran and the Prophet. We will, with Allah's help and the insight we gain from that position, we will continue to dwell on these issues that our enemies and the enemies of Allah use or are going to try to use to instigate us against each other. We remind ourselves that this topic is not a topic of preference to be dealt with from the minbar on Fridays, but we have no choice, because this is one of the few, if not the only, public access we have to explaining what has remained for almost 1,400 years unexplained. We took a close, considerate, confidential look at the way the first few decades unraveled after Allah's Prophet joined heavenly company. And we saw how careful and how conscientious Muslim interaction and Muslim disagreement was along the lines of the Khilafah and the Imamah that followed Allah's Prophet. We did not follow that closely interactions among Muslims as they developed along the line of worldly and potentially secular power that had its beginnings in this new political deviation away from the course of Allah's Prophet and the course of his first successors. And we mean by this political deviation the monarchy that began its debut with the grabbing of power by Muawiyah, the son of Abi Sufyan. There are many Muslims, because of the 1,400 mental lapse that we have inherited, even today, with all the advantages that we have to reconsider these events, still we have Muslims, and it doesn't matter, brothers and sisters, whatever types of Muslims you are looking at, or from whichever type of Islamic background you come from, still we have Muslims unable and incapable of saying that Muawiyah was the Muslims' first king. For whatever purposes, they still refer to him as a Khalifa, by and large. There are exceptions to this, of course, but we are looking at the thrust of our own history up until this very day. Muslims are not willing or are not daring enough to have the moral courage that is extracted from understanding these events in light of the Quran and in light of the Sunnah, to say that the Muslims had their first king in the person of Muawiyah. That is why we have to retrace this history to find out these facts. When Imam Al Asi, the second Imam, or the sixth Khalifa, and there's no contradictions here, when he ceded power, relinquished power, stood down from that position of power because of the freedom of conscience that he felt responsible for among the Muslim public, because of the participatory political right of the Muslim public, because of the issue of justice that is central to this Muslim public, and finally, because of the equality of the Muslims in this public, and then finally, because of the failure of this public to live up to the standards of Allah and His Prophet. This basically sums up the abrogation or the relinquishment of this position, which does not mean that this is an endorsement of Muawiyah as a king of Muslims. The interaction of the Khilafah and the Imamah was with the Muslim public before it was with these usurpers of power that now were making headway among the Muslims. Now we had a totally different outlook. Now we have an imposition of a new set of political ideas that do not relate whatsoever to the leadership of the Muslims as was taught by Allah's Prophet and practiced by His first successors. This was a break from that model and that political orientation. Muawiyah, the first king of Muslims, we pray for the day when Muslims in the near future are able to look at these political issues in the correct manner, without getting involved in the petty nationalism and sectarianism that have smothered this issue. This Muawiyah, when he came to power now, he didn't say, like the previous rulers of the Muslims, أطيعوني ما أطعت الله فيكم. Remember, every one of them said to the Muslim public, to the Muslim population,